Yo,
Right, Grant, how you doing?
good man, you?
Yeah, not too bad. You're wearing a hat. I braved the hat today for the first time. I was like, I'm going to fucking wear a hat. Grant will definitely wear a hat. He did not disappoint. Did you? How you getting on?
All right, man. Like, just tough, isn't it? Like the whole situation.
Listen, you doing takeaway stuff as well now. You're doing like mass.
Yeah, we're doing mass food boxes at the minute, which is they're doing really well actually. But it's just me. It's just I'm doing the cooking, the cleaning, the delivering, the shopping, the works. So
Cool.
it's kind of borderline for needing an extra person.
Mm.
But yeah, it's good, and it's keeping both places afloat at the moment. You know, paying the rent, paying the bills. But yeah, apart from that, can't complain. Can't complain.
How do you find that? See, when you're at that stage of like doing the takeaway stuff, and it's almost like it's borderline. You need somebody else, but you don't really want to bring somebody else in. Obviously, for I suppose knowing the size of the kitchen I'm asking about,
Yeah, it's tiny. Yeah.
that's a tight space. So how do you? Is that something you think you're going to do? You're going to get somebody else coming in? Or
We've got. I don't know if you know. There's like a prep kitchen downstairs in Mass. So,
right.
so we could have like someone cooking upstairs, then someone doing all the prep downstairs, and so then it would work pretty well.
Yeah.
Or you could have someone kind of working and prepping in the restaurant, then someone in the kitchen.
So you have that with Mass being quite, because you've got kind of the two levels of Mass. So you've got, it's not really two levels, but it's kind of, you've got the step up bit near the back. How's that looking for reopening? Are you talking like?
I've not even thought about reopening yet. Until they tell me what the guidance is going to be and what we're allowed to do, I've not even thought about it, because I think if you put too much thought and effort into something that you know nothing about at the moment, you've wasted all that time. Like, it's good to have some ideas, obviously, but if you say, right, we're going to do this, and the government say, well, you can just open fully, and you've maybe spent some money on, I don't know, perspex screens or new tables or whatever it might be, then you've kind of wasted that money, I guess.
So you're just going to wait and
I'm just waiting, yeah.
And just see what happens. You see, a lot of places are getting renovations done. A lot of people are doing a lot of stuff now. I suppose it's kind of hard not to, because there's even being open for takeaway. There's still a huge amount of downtime compared to what there was
for sure
before. So it's quite hard not to not to just delve into stuff. And now that you've got time to do it, renovate here and do this, that, and the next thing.
You've been open throughout, haven't you?
Yeah, I think it wasn't really a choice as such. It's like, yeah, we can't close. It's just not. It just wasn't really an option.
Yeah.
For us at the time, that you can't. Especially, you're only open 6 months. You can't really afford to shut the doors that early on. So you kind of. I don't know.
That's the hard thing with Underdog as well. Like, February, we just turned the corner and business was doing great, Then all of a sudden March happened, then we just fell off a cliff. And it was scary, because that's the other scary thing. Our restaurant's going to go back to how they were.
It's a massive one, because I think even in terms of, there's so many people, and I think you get the odd guy that's not really fussed. I mean, we still get people try to come in here, ask if we're open, if they can sit in for a coffee, and you're like, well, have you been under a rock or something? Like, no, because you can't. We wish you could, but you can't. But so you get some people that really aren't so, especially now, that it almost feels like it's done. I know it's probably not, but it almost feels like it's, you're over the edge a little bit. Everyone's kind of calming down. You get some people that are like, yeah, not a problem, I'll come and sit in. And you get other guys that, are going to Tesco for the first time in 10 weeks. Because they've been so terrified of going out. So it's a strange one. I don't know how people are gonna.
I know, me neither. I think maybe the initial few weeks we might see a bit of a kind of flood of people, but then after that it might slow down.
Because people will be missing it as well.
People are definitely missing it. Like I've spoken to loads of our customers from Mass, where they're kind of face to face when they see me cooking in the restaurant, or like over social media. Like people are definitely missing Mass and Underdog, both places. Like people keep texting me saying, "Why are you not opening Mass for normal takeaway?" And same with Underdog, but Mass food just doesn't travel very well. It's too small, like small kind of dishes, and there's no heat retention. No matter how well you package the food, it's cold by the time it gets to the end of the street. You know.
Yeah, did you try that before deciding not to do it?
Yeah, well, we always do takeaways, but we don't promote it really because we used to be on Deliveroo, as you know, and Deliveroo takes ages, you know. So by the time it gets to the house, people are phoning us complaining that it's cold, and as soon as that food item leaves the restaurant, it's out of our control. We've got no control over it, you know. So we came off Deliveroo pretty quickly, and we do a bit of takeaway from the restaurant, but nothing major.
No, just something that we didn't. I suppose we didn't really think about it before. We had a whole menu set out, and it just didn't travel well. Like, just by the looks, when I was putting it in the takeaway, like even this down to the tubs we were using and that, it just didn't look right, and it didn't feel right. And you're almost like, well, there's no point in doing it just for the sake of doing it. You know, if it's not right, you need to stop it. So that's why we swapped over the whole menu just to the burgers. So it's something a bit more robust that you can.
Yeah.
It's still, you know, it travels well, man. So it's kind of. But no, at least you actually thought about that before you do it. I guess that makes more sense. You know, we just kind of did it and then learned that, oh shit, that doesn't really work too well. We'll need to change it.
But it wasn't a mistake. It was a learning curve because you figured out that, well, actually, that doesn't work.
Yes.
So let's try something else. And for me, I kind of knew it wasn't going to work. That's why I thought, well, why not try and come up with these kind of menu boxes, meal boxes. And because it's me on my own, I just set the menu, and no one, like, unless they've got a dietary requirement, I can make a couple of wee tweaks if they do. We do a meat box, a veggie box, and a vegan box every week, and that's it. So it makes it easy for me. I think it's straightforward for the customers, but a lot of people emailed me telling me, "Oh, your website's a nightmare. I don't understand it." It's like, well, just click meat, veggie, or vegan. It's like,
is it? It's tricky sometimes. I think as well, you'll find a lot of people using these systems that have never, like, there'll be people ordering off of your, you know, from Mass at the moment, from your website, that have probably never used, you know, online delivery before.
Maybe,
I don't know what your demographic is, but certainly what we get here is a lot of, I don't know, Dundee's different than Forfeit. You know, we get a lot of people that have, you know, I don't even know if any of them, you know, use the internet at all. You know, but they try to work it out, just order, because it's the only way to order the food nowadays. You know, nobody does it any other way really at the moment.
No one's doing it. Not many people do it over the phone. You know.
We tried that. We've got the phone. We only open the phone at 5 o'clock, but all day, you know, it'll ring from maybe sort of 10 o'clock in the morning till right up until 5 o'clock. I don't want to say it on it, but yeah, you know, but there's that, you know, because again, you're in here by yourself. You're here grinding the meat down for the burgers or whatever. You're all minging in something. You know,
you don't want to get out of your kind of rhythm.
You're constantly, and again, because you're by yourself, it's a huge amount of work for, you know, just for a couple of people to be doing. So you know, there is that kind of, you don't have time to be answering the phone, and, you know, and then you're on the phone for 20 minutes, and then, you know, it gets a bit. I don't like ignoring it. I'll be honest, sometimes I do switch it off. I just pull the plug. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing because I'm in the basement kitchen doing the prep down there, and the phone's up in the restaurant. I kind of don't hear it, so. but you're right. It does ring. It does ring a lot.
Do you think there'll be more of that takeaway stuff when we go back? Do you think that's something that you'll get? People will just keep asking for those boxes. Is that
definitely? And it's, I mean, looking forward, we're going to continue it. Definitely, it's been a good success. And I think you get a lot of food for the money. It is a good package. I think.
I think you can give a lot more value on this takeaway side. Not more value. I think it's value. I don't think I think working with you before now. Obviously, I know you don't. You never overcharge people anyway. You don't take the piss. It's honest. It's an honest pricing.
And I think that's fair.
But doing delivery, I mean, you're pretty much cutting out your staff costs almost.
Yeah.
You've none of this crockery, tableware they're using up. They're not sitting in your restaurant. I mean, I don't know about you, but we're working in a freezing cold restaurant. The heating's been off pretty much since we started. So you kind of cut a lot of your costs. You can actually give them, when it is just about the food, you can give them more food for the money.
Yeah, I would say the portions are slightly bigger than restaurant portions, definitely.
Which I think some people will maybe get addicted to, I guess, getting that
that level of portion.
Yeah, kind of, getting more value if you have it takeaway.
Yeah, I think as well, I think like kind of outside catering might take off a lot more. If you've got like maybe a big family group or and you want to go to a restaurant for a meal, I think there's still going to be a percentage of people that don't really want to go out as much anymore.
Yeah.
So I think like outside catering, like bringing all the food to your house or having a chef in your house for the night, I think that's going to take off as well.
Yeah. I'll be saying is that something that you're going to look at doing yourself?
We'd actually discussed a few options before. There was talk of hiring the whole restaurant out for just your group, and you get a bespoke tasting menu, Mexican tasting menu. So we discussed that. Then we'd also discussed exactly the same, like a bespoke kind of 8-course tasting menu, but in your own home. So one chef and one floor person, barman, or kind of someone that's good at the cocktails would come to your house and they would cook and make all your drinks for you all night. So I think
that's interesting, because that's something that we had that Adam Youth was talking about that as well. He was talking, thinking along those same lines of having instead. It's definitely something a lot of people are talking about. It'll be interesting to see. It's one of those things. It's if that is the next thing. It's one of them things. It's interesting to watch people all kind of have similar ideas and then see who can actually execute it, if it actually works. Because I suppose there is a lot of logistics involved in doing that. I don't know if that then puts the cost up. You got to travel to people's houses. You got to take all the shit with you. Yeah. You got to clean up. It's going to take a lot of time. Instead of paying a front of house perhaps for a 6-hour shift, it could be longer. By the time they've cleaned down, put everything away, brought it back to the restaurant, put it all away and whatnot, you could be talking. Logistically, it's quite interesting.
And I suppose logistically as well, I mean, does the house you're going to have a frying pan? Does it have a pot? So I suppose then you've just got to take all your own equipment anyway.
Yeah.
Crockery as well, glassware, I suppose you would have to take it all with you, So there would be a lot of logistical things to work out. But I saw Adam doing boxes. Is he doing quite well off that, or what was he saying?
Yeah, he said they were doing. One thing that interested me about Adam, the boxes he was using kind of black plates. So he was like sourcing takeaway stuff that wasn't your traditional takeaway stuff. If that makes sense. So is the stuff he was using to serve up and was actually a nice black plate. So it was quite interesting. It was an interesting one. But yeah, that's something that is doing well, enjoying it. So far, I think everybody's kind of enjoying the kind of spend a bit more time at home as well, which
For sure.
it's a strange one. Adam Handlin was, it's the first time he kind of sat down and had dinner with his little one, in his own house.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. And you think, I don't know, when you're doing that much stuff, like, I find it hard enough for one. You probably think you've got the two. This guy's got the 5 places, and it's where do you stop? Like, where do you draw the line and say
he's at a different level, isn't he?
This is enough. Yeah, but his work rate seems to be, it's intense. Like it's interesting, especially when you look at it around. You're like the guy from Dundee. It's almost like now you've got 5 places down south. You 230 staff or something. He said it's almost unthinkable. Like,
but as
it's a different drive, isn't it?
It is, and it's a different setup as well. So if you take our businesses, they're both pretty small. So we do almost everything ourselves, like whether it's the accounts, the marketing, the cooking, the cleaning. Like we're basically one-man bands. But if you look at Adam and his setup with 5 restaurants, he'll have a full team of people supporting him and like, working with him on a day-to-day basis. I'm not saying the job's any easier or harder. I'm just saying it's
the sign that he touched on that quite a bit actually about having, that team is the important part. Like that is the secret to the success is the team, is the people you surround yourself with.
For sure.
But I think there's definitely still a skill in that. There's a skill in selecting your team. It's a huge. That's a huge thing. I know you've got a couple of guys that have been with you for years. So it's a bit like Steve and whatnot. Guys that you're kind of getting in, years ago, and they're still with you now. And that's maybe something. That's what he was saying as well. When he opens a new place, somebody else is running it for him. Somebody else, but they have 50%. And he gives them
it, do they?
Well, I don't know if it's a share such creatively. They have 50%. So he has, he gives them a framework, which is kind of 50% of it. And then they get 50%. Okay. So the personality of each individual restaurant it's
slightly different.
Is the personality of the person that's running it rather than his. He has the 50%. This is the guidelines. This is you don't deviate from these guidelines, but within these guidelines, you can do what you like, essentially. Which is
cool. That's cool.
That's a cool way of doing it, and it keeps everybody engaged. That's one thing I asked him about quite a bit was, how do you keep it personal? When you're all over the place like that, how do you keep it? Because that's what I think anyway. That's what people want. People want to feel like it's a personal experience, and if that can come from, for instance, yourself, if they're coming in and picking up the delivery off of you, like they know you're the guy you're the guy that owns the place. You're also the guy that at the moment's doing the dishes. You're also the guy that's in the kitchen. I think people like that. People like to see. I don't know. People like to see people getting worked to death. People enjoy that, but it shows that you really do give a shit about it. Though
and I think you're dead right. I mean, even when I was a barman years ago for a restaurant in Perth, Paco's restaurant, people weren't coming for the food or the drink. People were coming because Paco made a bit of a deal about each customer. He would go to every table and speak to them. Just, hi, how you doing? Oh, you all well tonight? Okay, see you later. And people loved that. Like they soaked it in, like, oh, the owner spoke to me, and even to today, people love it. Like people love being recognized. People love if someone comes in, oh, is it a cappuccino today, without them even opening their mouth,
Yeah.
Oh, glass of red wine and a margarita? Oh, yeah, no worries. Like,
But there must be because I don't think, remembering anyway, when we worked at Avery and Co, there wasn't really there wasn't an online booking system, for instance. It was all pen and paper.
There was for about a month.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was there was that kind of pen and paper. It was in the book, but you still kind of knew, like you'd hear you saying all the time, oh, that's it, so and so, they're wanting this and that. They always have this, they always have that. You kind of, for me, we've kind of dumbed it down, and it's almost a lazy version of that. The booking systems that we use, you can have notes, so you can see, that customer's coming in again. This is what they had last time. You have to still physically go and collect the information and put it in the stuff. So you still got to talk to them. So but it's like an easier way of doing it. Whereas you had that kind of, I suppose that's a skill in itself, you know, being able to just remember shit like that. And it does.
Yeah, but
people do feel.
If you asked me to remember their names, I couldn't. I could remember like probably what they ate for the last 10 visits they had, or like yeah. But
there's always that, you know, like that's French toast lady that never knew who it was, what the name was, nothing.
I mean, I've forgotten your name. What's your name?
But when you see them come in, you're kind of like, you know what they eat, and that's kind of almost more important than their name. Because I don't know, loads of people know their name, but nobody knows what they have for lunch every day, like apart from you. So it's quite a cool thing.
Yeah.
So how does that? I want to talk quite a bit about, only if you're up for it, really.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're sick of talking about it. All the kind of everything veganism, and in general, how it's kind of, I don't know. It seems to have grown.
Oh, massively.
Especially like in cities and stuff. I don't see much of it out in the little towns like out here. I think because most people recognise that it's not hugely catered for around these bits. So it's kind of, everybody goes to Dundee for it, or they go through to Glasgow or whatever. How is that? Do you think it's something that's almost a trend? Like a lot of people, it's quite cool to be vegan. Yeah, it is quite.
Yeah, I mean.
Or do you think it's something that's here to stay?
It's definitely something here to stay. I mean, I suppose we were Dundee's first restaurant with a full vegan menu, but that was through sheer chance, not because I thought it was a good idea. It was sheer chance. The staff kept coming to me saying, "Oh, this lady's vegan," or "This guy's vegan. I don't know what they can have." So I thought, right, okay, I can't be in the restaurant 100% of the time. So I thought, right, I'll take our menu and I'll write every dish that they can have and just put the word vegan menu at the top. So as soon as a vegan comes in, that's the menu. So that started taking off, and then we got a bit of a name for having this vegan menu. And I thought, well, this is actually a thing then. People are coming to us for vegan dishes. So then instead of just kind of adjusting our vegetarian dishes to become vegan, we started putting a lot more time and effort into creating vegan dishes. So that was how it kind of first started off slowly. And when we first had the vegan menu, I think they said 1% of the country were vegan. Mm-hmm. And I mean, last year when we opened Underdog, they said 10% of the country were vegan. So in 5 years, there's been a massive jump. Millions of people going to like a plant-based vegan diet for different reasons. There's a lot of different reasons people would take a vegan diet. But then what really hit it home for us, my son, Sam, as you know, has got a dairy and egg allergy, and it's so severe that we don't even bring dairy or eggs into the house anymore. It's just it's not worth it. Because even just a spot, if I touch a piece of cheese, then touch his arm, he'll break out in kind of hives all over his body. It's quite scary, and you've got to give him loads of medication to get rid of it. And he's very uncomfortable and screaming and stuff. So just not worth it. So we don't bring it into the house. So we kind of started off no dairy, mainly vegetables and things, and beans and grains and stuff, but with some meat on the side. Then just over time, we kind of dumped the meat and just we eat 100% vegan in the house. I'm not 100% vegan at the moment. Very occasionally, like I might have a little bit of meat. Usually because it's something left over in the restaurant that's either going to go in the bin or needs to go in someone's tummy. So
there is that thing as being a chef though, and being in the kitchen. It's a really hard, I suppose, to be anything really, like to be anything other than a chef. Like it's a very it's a broad label that you can't really be. Well, I suppose you can be if you really wanted to be a vegan chef. You could be, but if you're not in a vegan restaurant, it's really hard because you're almost like Because I remember at Avery when I started working there, I thought that I'm going to try and eat vegan for a bit, because I know you had this emphasis
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
on vegans and being vegan and all these diet requirements. I thought, if I'm not eating it, how am I going to know? Like, if I don't, because it's not something I'd ever kind of came across before. A lot of vegetarian stuff, never properly fully vegan stuff. A lot of guys would just say, no, we don't do that. It's not worth the hassle.
It's just lazy. If a chef's saying that now, it's just lazy. Oh, we don't do anything. What, you don't have any vegetables in your...
Yeah, it really means you don't have any imagination. You can't fucking create something. But there was something about being out your comfort zone like that, and having to do stuff vegan was dead interesting. It was good fun. But then you find yourself, you're in the restaurant, and it wasn't a fully vegan restaurant when it was at Avery & Co, obviously.
No.
And it's kind of like, right, you made a nice dish that's got meat in it. You got to taste it. Yeah. You got to taste everything. You got to make sure you make a new dish to go on a menu. You got to sit down and eat it. Like, you got to know how it eats. Yeah. So it must be really difficult and I'm sure there's hundreds of vegan chefs kicking about that are not thousands, no doubt, but they're kind of, how do you be fully vegan in a non-vegan or not 100% vegan restaurant? It's quite a difficult balance.
Or you have people around you that aren't vegan, so they can do the eating or the tasting for you, I guess. But yeah, I know
trust. That's a lot of trust.
There is a lot of trust. If you're
guy said it was nice, so we're going to do it. I don't really know what it tastes like, but
it is tricky. To be fair, I have been vegan for probably 99.9% vegan for quite a long time, until I started the mass takeaway boxes, like, what was that, 4 or 5 weeks ago now?
Mm.
And because you've got to taste the food, like, if you're not happy with the food, if you don't taste the food and you're punting it out to the customers and you've not tasted it, like, that just can't happen,
Yeah.
So
you got to know what you're sending.
You've got to know what you're sending. So, and that's kind of, when I kind of went back to not 100% kind of plant-based diet.
Because I think there's like an evolution though, isn't there? Like, I don't know, the evolution of being, it's almost unintentional, like for yourself, you see, you're 99.9% vegan almost by accident.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like you made a conscious decision for, right, I'm going to start eating vegan. That's it. It's almost like circumstances changed, and it's almost led you to, now you're vegan completely by accident. So it's almost a different kind of, because for a long time I felt there was kind of two kinds of vegans. There was the guys that were doing it for, the health benefits, and there was the guys that were doing it for, the animal welfare reasons. What I think maybe wrongfully labelled, but definitely labelled like a preachy vegan. There's that kind of, the kind that put you off being vegan, because telling people you eat vegan, because they just automatically kind of associate it with this kind of, I'm better than you because I don't eat meat.
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily works like that, but I think there is a truth of, there has to be a cutback in the consumption of meat and dairy.
Yeah.
There's not really another option. Like, it just has to be. Whether you want enough people to be vegan so you don't have to actually do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's different. That's I've said that a few times. But again, you're kind of accidental vegan. This kind of new, I don't know. You're a new breed, Grant.
Well, I think as well, like, because once you start kind of eating like that, then you start seeing the benefits or doing more research into things. So, for instance, like, as you said, I kind of fell into it by accident or circumstances like Sam. And you kind of just adapt the way you've always cooked. Mm. And maybe you look for alternatives or read into things more. But once you kind of start eating like that and cooking like that, then you start, oh, well, actually, it's a lot better for the environment eating this way.
Mm.
Or actually, well, animal welfare's, you wouldn't walk down the street and slit a human's throat than eat the flesh, you know? So why is it okay to kind of do that to animals? And I'm in quite a tough kind of predicament at the moment, because I've got Underdog, which I fully believe in and love the food, and it's all homemade and it's all plant-based and we love it. But I've got Mass in this hand, which is predominantly meat and fish-based, dairy-based. We do have a full vegan menu there, which is gaining more popularity. But where does the balance come? You know, because Mass is employing people, it's supporting people, the kind of community love it. But actually, from my own personal beliefs, should Mass be fully vegan to go with what I believe in personally?
Well, it's funny you kind of touch on that, because I was speaking to Adam. We set up Adam does all the kind of, I don't know, he does all the kind of mixing and making sure everybody sounds all right. So he's muted somewhere in this the Zoom world. But I was speaking to him on the way down to work this morning on the phone, and I said to him, it's a weird predicament to be in when you've got, you know, is it a belief or is it a business model? Like what?
Yeah.
You know, because if it's one, then there's two of them. So it's kind of like, if it is a genuine belief, which we believe that it is, it's kind of, okay, there's Underdog, but then there's Mass. So if it's a genuine belief, then should it be both? But then is it a business model as well? So then you almost, you know, like for instance, at the moment, Mass is subsidizing Underdog because Underdog's shut. So if you didn't have that business model as well, then you wouldn't have your, I'm not saying that Underdog is necessarily a passion project, but sometimes you need to have something a bit more, you know, not necessarily in line with your own beliefs to, you know, to keep afloat the business that you, not that you don't believe in Mass at all.
Yeah,
but, you know, to have a fully vegan restaurant, it's at the moment, it's crucial that you have Mass. You know, you have to have and if Mass was, you know, fully vegan, would it be as busy as it is? You know, it's
a tough one.
Sometimes you got to bite the bullet and just kind of, I don't know, not sell out, but sell out a little bit. Like sell out enough to keep doing what you want to be doing.
Yeah. It is tough. It is tough. But me personally, for a vegan plant-based diet, I feel better. I feel healthier. I eat a lot more fruit and vegetables, like all day. I feel kind of, if I'm going out exercising, which isn't very often, but I'm not kind of sore the next day. Like my body's ready to go again.
Yeah.
Whereas I used to, after going on long cycle runs and stuff, I used to get sore legs the next day and your muscles would ache a bit, but I genuinely don't get that.
How do you find, I don't know, it's almost like it used to be a bit of a taboo subject, being vegan.
Yeah.
I find that's something that's changed. Like if you went, for instance, if I turned around to my old man, right, today, and said, I'm vegan, by the way, Dad. It's almost like, it's like some kind of coming out going on. I'm like,
yeah.
And he wouldn't get it. Like he would get it, but he wouldn't really. He would never jump on board with something like that. You know, he doesn't mind vegetarian stuff. He'll eat it. Sometimes he prefers it, but you know that there's just something about. It's almost branded itself as being, you know, a kind of hippie lifestyle. Kind of suddenly, I don't know. You're cutting up old bits.
I almost think a generational thing. Like, for instance, when I was growing up, when I was a child, it was like, what would you get for your tea every night, your dinner? Meat and 2 veg. Like, and I think that's how my parents still eat. I mean, my dad had never had a vegetarian meal in his life before he came to Avery and Co.
Yeah.
You know? And now he comes to Underdog and absolutely loves it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Would he go vegan? No, he probably wouldn't. And he's supportive of the way I eat. And when family and friends come to the house, we only cook vegan. Like, we don't, just because we've got non-vegans coming to the house, we don't change what we offer them.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just make sure what we offer them is like still tasty, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we don't change anything we do when people come to visit us.
It's just so, and I think as well, it's a bit of a, I don't know, like if we did it, our house is predominantly vegetarian, but it's not. Yeah, I think, there's a bit of bacon in the fridge. You have bacon for your breakfast. That's kind of the extent of it. Abby is totally weird. I think she actually messaged me this morning saying she's not eating bacon anymore because she thought about, when she doesn't like to think where it comes from because then she can't eat it. And she keeps thinking about where stuff comes from, so now she can't eat anything, which I suppose is a good thing.
Yeah,
Even
well,
like to the extent of eggs and that. Yeah, she can't eat eggs now. And the kids already, like, they didn't want to eat stuff that was, I asked them a couple of times, when they started working out where stuff was coming from, it comes up in conversation. I never kind of pushed them one way or the other. I said, nah, you're definitely eating meat, or you're definitely eating, veggies or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of a free choice. But it's kind of naturally going, like, extremely vegetarian, if not vegan. There's the oat milk, she started did not like normal milk, she's on the oat milk, and it's kind of a progression. And it's interesting because I didn't realize any of this stuff till maybe I was 14, 15. Kids are kids are 5 and 7 and they're thinking about it. Yeah. So it's interesting for that next generation. And I think as well, since yours is started off being a dietary thing,
yeah,
it almost takes the choice away from it as well. It's not a choice, or it maybe is a choice now, to go fully and and keep it going, even.
Yeah.
So
for me now, though, like, there's nothing you can't. 5 years ago when Sam was born, and I remember I did Veganuary the first time, just when Sam was born, which was a bit silly because Sharon was still in hospital for a month and I was going like a yo-yo from the restaurant to the hospital restaurant, and it was just crazy. So I was trying to eat on the go all the time. And at that point, you couldn't get a vegan sandwich in Tesco or wherever. You couldn't get something vegan on the go. Yeah. It was just a nightmare. So I ended up failing the Veganuary. And but now, I mean, it's so easy now to have choices. No matter what restaurant or cafe you go to, really, there's going to be some decent vegan choice. If it's a half decent place, usually there's going to be a vegan choice, or you get vegan sandwiches and wraps at Tesco now. It's a lot easier now than it used to be, and especially with places like Underdog, Rad Apples. More and more places are going to start coming up. Serendipities in the town as well. It's
definitely a growing.
For sure.
No, yeah, I was going to say it's a growing trend, but it's not a growing lifestyle choice.
Yeah, it is a growing lifestyle.
There's been less and less. I don't know. Not that it was ever frowned upon.
No, but
it was almost like if you were eating vegan, you wouldn't really tell anyone. It's kind of like you don't have to. But if your mate came up to you and offered you something, you're like, sorry, I'm vegan. Yeah. There would be a bit of a what? I don't know. It's not uncomfortable about it, but I think it's now kind of, I don't know. It's so commonplace now that nobody really bats an eyelid.
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of friends, and family still think it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
You don't eat meat cheese. You can eat cheese. Like, well, cheese comes from cows,
I think again, there's a generational thing there as well. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of people, sort of, what am I? Can't even remember. Hold on, 26. So you kind of, I don't know. That's the kind of age group that it's kind of acceptable. I feel anyway. Like if I was speaking to my mates that are kind of similar ages as me, they don't really care. For instance, if my dad decided, fuck it, I'm going vegan, like just for a laugh, see what happens, and he told one of his mates, he'd never hear the end of it. You couldn't do it. Like, it wouldn't really be as socially acceptable. And he's only, was he 50? So, it's not really.
And that's what I was saying kind of a few minutes ago. There's nothing you can't have now. Like, there is a substitution for almost everything. If you miss something so much, there's a substitution for it. You know, like we were before lockdown. We were at Sharon's mum and dad's, and they were all having steak and veggies and stuff. But I made butternut squash steaks, and they were absolutely. We put the same marinade on them, the same, and they were delicious. Honestly, you would know, but it was delicious. We went to Har Restaurant in St Andrews.
Yeah.
For our anniversary back in December, and we had the vegan tasting menu. Oh, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
So, because he actually had a little thing, I've been meaning to actually get in touch with Dean and see if he would do a chat about it, because he had that little controversial spat on Twitter, didn't he? With
yeah.
Oh, I can't remember who it was with.
Was it the guy from St Monans, wasn't it? Or Anne's brother or something?
And he was essentially saying, you know, I'll take all your vegan customers, mate. Like, see if you're complaining about them, I'll have them. Like, thank you very much. No, and it's that kind of. Sorry, Nico.
No, it's I think I'm from the same kind of background as Dean as well. Like when I worked at the hotel, nothing was too much hassle. You know, like you're there to please your guests. If you've got bacon and eggs or in your drawer or your fridge, but it's past 12 o'clock, I can't do breakfast anymore. Why not? You've still got the ingredients in your fridge. What's the difference taking that out your fridge than some pasta?
Yeah, that's something that stuck with me actually, because you said that at Avery and Go as well. You know, there was that kind of, if you fucking got it, like, and they're asking for it, because that's something that we actually, and I again came from Avery and Co, and that's, you know, what we do here. You know, there's that breakfast, there's like a hot roll menu that we do at breakfast time, but that runs all day. All day. You have that anytime. Anytime you want that, you have it. And people are almost surprised. They're like, can I still get that? I'm like, of course you can. Like, and I've got the stuff, so you can have it.
And by doing that to the customer appreciates it, because you want every customer leaving your restaurant or bar, whatever it is, thinking, oh, that was good in there. Not because the food was absolutely out of this world, not because, it's really nice furniture and things, but the service is the key, you know, like you don't want that, they wouldn't make me a bacon roll. I'm a bit upset about that. Whereas 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're walking out saying, they made me what I wanted. That was amazing. Yeah. You know?
There's a total balance as well though, because there's a couple of things that I've said yes. I pretty much say yeah to everything. Like anything happens. And I've said that's the rule with the front of house staff as well. Everybody's on the same page. It's like, you tell the customer yeah, and then you bring it back to the kitchen and we'll worry about it. Like they can have whatever they want, you know, and then it's let us worry about how we don't have any of this kind of, I'll go and ask the chef. You know, that doesn't exist, because that makes the customer feel like it
might be a problem.
Yeah. What's going on? Like, oh, now I feel a bit awkward. Like we don't want that. So the rule is, you know, you can have whatever they like. They want the beef dish with the accompaniments from the chicken, but that kind of the sauce from the veggie dish, of course, they have whatever you like. And I think when you do that, it does give that kind of, you know, it liberates the team as well. I think, you know, giving the front house team that freedom to just say yes to anything. People like saying it. People like pleasing the customer. That's why they're in the job.
That's why we're here.
That's what they enjoy doing. So if you give them the complete freedom to say yes to pretty much anything, you just say yeah, and then we'll worry about it after. It does add a bit of stress to the kitchen sometimes, but that's part of
it can do.
That's
especially
part of the fun, though.
Especially if you've got 8 checks on the board and someone's wanting something off the menu, you know.
Yeah, but I think doing it is so important. And I think from a business point of view as well. No, we don't often do it massively. But if they order something off menu, there's no price on it.
No.
If they just make something up, it gives you. And I think as well, if you're going out of your way to do something, not like if they wanted to just swap a side or an accompaniment or something, that's different. Like that's interchangeable. If they're wanting something completely fucking like not on the menu, nothing, like completely different, which again, of course, we'll do it. But then there's a premium on that, because you do have to. I think you pay for getting what you want. You know, you can have exactly what you want. Of course you can.
But there's a price tag to it.
But there's a price on it because which I guess, I don't know, it's a bit selfish. I keep having to remind myself that we're doing this podcast for other people in the restaurant business, because we had this debate at the start whether we were doing it for chefs and restaurateurs and whatnot, or whether we were doing it for customers to get an inside look. And I think, we decided to do it for chefs and that, so I always kind of watch what I'm saying, because I'm like, I don't want to sound like an asshole and say, oh yeah, you can have what you like as long as you pay for it.
That comes naturally, Daniel, don't worry.
Well, I think it maybe does. But there's not that. I mean, there is the genuine want to do something different for people. You want to give people the best experience they can have.
Definitely.
But it does free you up from a business point of view to say, yeah, you can have whatever you like, but there's a price on it. And most people that have got the audacity to come in and say, I want something that's not even on your menu, they're usually the kind of person that's kind of, I don't know, they're usually, they don't mind paying for it.
Yeah.
They expect to pay for it. And they like paying for it. And there's that as well. People like spending a lot of money sometimes on something that nobody else was getting.